everyone. I am somewhat jet-lagged. My name's Nate, and I'm actually coming, all the way from Hawaii. You kind of took my line there. And a lot of people know me as the creator of Tamagui and One, and I'll talk a little bit about both of those today. And I actually, pretty cool, that was Tansky on the last talk, and also he kind of talked a lot about what I'm going to talk about, which is pretty cool, kind of merging things together, so that was nice. Appreciate that. Some context is that I really like building products. I very much am a creative person. I like coming up with ideas and building things, but for some reason, for the last decade, I've ended up getting stuck doing dev tools. And I think a lot of you can probably relate to that. How does that happen? It's a pretty simple process. I start a new project, I'm building things, I'm having a great time in my lane and all that. And then I notice that something really sucks. I don't even have to finish this slide. You all know this. Actually, I think Johannes had a really great tweet the other day. And that's how both Tamagui and One started. They had projects that no longer exist, but they exist, so that's cool. Just a little bit of background on them. You may be wondering, where's the local first part? There'll be some tie-in, but I'll just quickly kind of introduce them. Tamagui is a React and React Native style library and UI kit. It was, like I said, it was built as I was building a project during the pandemic on React Native, and I noticed that React Native's styling primitives were extremely primitive, so I ended up creating it because it lacked a ton of features that I was used to on the web, and so I wanted to bring those to native. And there were some other libraries at the time that did have these abstractions, but whenever you abstract something, you end up paying a tax on that, and so they were really slow on both native and web. So what Tamagui does is it has an optimizing compiler that lets you write really simple code, but then it actually goes and optimizes it so that it's not slow and it's outputting CSS and really great flat trees on the web, or on native it kind of unrolls things and just makes them a bit faster. And so the idea there is sort of it's trying to get around the limitations of write once and run anywhere. So that's Tamagui, and One is a more recent project of mine. It's a framework. It's also React and React Native. It's basically you could replace something like Metro plus Next.js instead of Metro and Next.js, or whatever your web and native frameworks are. You just have this. It gives you basically typed file system routes, stuff like that. And the idea is, again, it's trying to be as good as any framework for the web, but also you can just also do native stuff. So again, it's kind of trying to make write once and run anywhere, not have downsides. Now, you can still kind of diverge and do other things if you want to. You don't have to make it feel the same on every platform, but it just makes it as easy as possible for the things that you do want to share across platforms. And so, I took these detours to build these things because I felt like they were the worst parts of what I was building when I was trying to build universal apps. And so I was, my question now is are we there yet? Can I start a new project without getting sidetracked? And so, I've got my style and UI now, I've got my bundler and my framework now, and am I safe? And I think the answer is that, or at least until very recently, is that there was this big risk that I would end up having to build a data solution. And so I just wanted to kind of thank all of you guys because, I do not want to build a sync engine or a local first library. I want to build a product. And I was kind of wondering because, 10 years ago or more, there were a lot of early attempts at things that looked like sync engines. But for some reason, they had some popularity, but it wasn't like they were super popular. There was no there's a lot of other things that kind of took precedence or became more popular than, say, sync engines. And so I was wondering what took so long. And this is not meant to be, by the way, a history of sync engines or local first or anything, but it's I just kind of wanted to show a few events that kind of happened. And it's 2011, you had CRDT paper, you had Parse, you had PouchDB. 2012, I really thought this is the future, Firebase, Meteor. It just felt like that was kind of the path of progress, and et cetera, et cetera. 2019 local first paper by Ink and Switch, right? And so it's like, yeah, sometimes it's kind of interesting how sometimes it feels like things are going in one direction, but they take a little bit longer than you expect. I don't know if, I mean, this image is from Gwern. He wrote this blog post about the history of Bitcoin, and he was kind of just saying like all the prerequisite technologies existed like 8 or more years before Bitcoin was actually invented. And so it's kind of like interesting how like I don't think as a technologist it doesn't seem that interesting. It's like, yeah, it takes a while to kind of like put everything together. But yeah, it kind of feels like we're in a similar situation now where a lot of this stuff has been like vetted out, but like the great solutions haven't exactly become fully formed and like popular yet. And then meanwhile, sort of in like another universe, you had like React query kind of became like the main way that I think still today most people kind of do data on the front end, or GraphQL kind of had a thing for a little while. And then more recently there's been React server components. And a lot of people ask me, because I'm building like a React framework, like what do you think about React server components? And so kind of for I have my opinions about it, but I thought I would just try and kind of see if I could abstract React server components and build like a local first or like a synced local hybrid, right, to kind of like merge the two of them together. So I did that, or I started on it. This is where I was getting. I added like a few more files that had like persisting the state locally and all this stuff. But by the time I kind of got to here, I'd already had added a ton of concepts to my app. And yeah, so I had all these new concepts. I was forced to split things into a bunch of different files, which was kind of interesting because I thought that you could do like inline directives like use server, but I guess you can't in like client files or something like that. So it was kind of like forcing me to move things further away from my files than I expected, which I kind of thought was weird with like React's whole thing is kind of like, let's put things together that are meant to work together. But at the same time, I'm having to split out things that feel like they would naturally go in a different area. So I had a bunch of different files, I had a bunch of different rules that I had to follow, and a bunch of glue code. And I just feel like I realized in writing this talk that there was kind of a way that I could kind of like put everything that describes like what I want. And I think this is why I was saying like the last talk was kind of so relevant, is because I kind of want to write my apps as though they are for one thing. Like, kind of getting to that same point is like, I really like client-side React. Like, to me, that's kind of the dream. Like the Firebase, the Meteor, that you just have your query inside your component. You don't feel like you're writing or having to think about a bunch of different environments. And then I want to have some things like optimizing compilers or smart frameworks or smart tools kind of make those run in different areas and be fast. And so, yeah, I mean, I want to write it like a client-side app, have it run in different places. Well, and that's kind of like the theme, I feel like, of all the dev tools that I've done, which is like Tamagui lets you write styles in one way. You can still like kind of diverge as you need, but it has an optimizing compiler, makes it easy. One also, likewise, you can write your routes in one way, but it can run on a bunch of different platforms. And one is actually kind of, we've been working with Zero. I live down the street from Aaron Boudman, and so part of the inspiration for building one was kind of talking with him over many months when they were doing Replicache. And I felt like Zero was like kind of finally getting to that point where I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. And Zero is kind of the same deal, right? Like you kind of just you can just write your queries. You're not really thinking about the server, but it just, for you, handles all the syncing. I don't really need to explain that to you guys. But yeah, so like instead of that super complex React server components code, you just have pretty much as simple as possible. And so yeah, I mean, that's it. I kind of just wanted to go over this kind of idea that I finally feel like I've put together in words, which is like React for one computer. And yeah, one is a framework that is trying to not do server components. I think like every other React framework is kind of just going that direction, and I didn't feel like that was the direction that I liked, how I like to write my apps. And so one is kind of a framework that I would love to continue to work with all the different local first libraries actually and sync engines to work well, because I don't want to have to handle data. I would like to just let you guys do that. So yeah, no server components, but it does support single page app, SSR, and SSG. Actually, it supports it globally and per page, which is really nice. Not many frameworks do that. So you can have your SPA app, but you can also then have like a couple marketing pages that render as like statically, which is pretty nice. And it gives you like some helpers that are really important if you have a sync engine or local first library to render on the server, but then hand that data over to the client. And it also supports a bunch of platforms, obviously. I think that's like pretty important for, like when you have like a really great optimistic mutations, you can make great native apps. So it lets you make native apps. It lets you make web apps. I wish I had I wish I was bold enough to take a drink from one of these. Almost there though. And then yeah, it's open source. We're a small team, fully self-funded, and it's very easy to build and host. It comes with a Hono production server, and you can just host it with one command. So I think it's kind of like lets you control your destiny. And yeah, I'm letting you guys do all the hard work. And so that is what one is. I kind of like this little quote because I'm not doing data. You can just not do things. And the good news is that for the last 6 months, I have been building a new app, and I have not felt the need to invent anything new. So that's been amazing for me. Thank you.